Welcome back to Stellar Horizons. We are starting today in the year 2040. This should be episode 2. If it's not episode 2, sorry, I've done something different than I expected, but this should be episode 2. Doing the 2040s today. We did the economics phase at the end of the last episode, so we'll just jump right into the build phase now for 2040. So for South America, they're playing a little risky here, I think. They're going to build an LV3 and a CV3. Their idea is to get a base up in Earth orbit that should have at least one settlement by the end of the decade. That's their goal. That way they can get a trade marker in the next decade. They like to start making money that way. And they also want to get a research station there. They contemplated making a base out on Mars. There's a lot of good research out there right now. But I think with their current money situation, I think they're going to hold off this decade doing that. That'll probably be something they look at doing next decade. So we'll go on over here to Japan. Let's see if I can find it. There we go. So Japan, they have right now a robotic explorer limit of 3, which means they can have up to 7. They have 3 out there right now. They're going to buy 2 more right now. They're going to buy an orbiter. It's going to go to Uranus and try to finish their mission there. And they also have a flyby that's just going to get as much research as they can. They're at +2 right now on the robotic explorer exploration. So they're hoping to get some value out of that. And then coming over here to the North Americans, they are resupplying their CV2. And they're buying an LV3 and a CV3, and they're going to go out to Mars and build a base. So whereas the South Americans' kind of goal with their bases is to trade and do research, the North Americans' idea is going to be to start making resources, and at least in Mars, I think they're going to try to build a supply station as well. Mars does have right now 8 supply to produce. Subterranean water is the card there, so they've got 6 plus their 2. So at the end of every decade, 8 supply can be generated there right now. So it's a good place to go put a base. I know that both South and North America would really like to do that, so that is the goal for them. That is their intention, at least. I think just for at the moment, I think it's going to be a little difficult for South America to do that. They have a little bit less money than North America. And they also don't have -1 to their base construction like North America does. So they also didn't have a... Well, they both need to build LV3s, so that was not so much of an issue. So we're just going to try to do it a little bit differently between the two. That is the idea. But South America would like to get out to Mars next decade. So that's the goal. That's where we're at for 2040. Those are the builds. I'll go ahead and do mandatory movement and then move on to other movement. All right, mandatory moves have been completed. The initiative order is the same as it was last decade. North America, Japan, South America. So movement goes in reverse initiative order. So we'll start with South America. The only thing they have right now is their rover on the asteroid belt. And then they're also going to launch their CV3. They have a CV3. It's going to be carrying 4 supplies. They're launching it on an LV3. They would really like to be able to reuse this LV3. They roll a 13, so it is a successful launch, but they do not get to keep the launch vehicle. That is going to be very difficult for them. They were really hoping to be able to use that launch vehicle going forward for the rest of the decade, so that may change what their plan is moving forward. But the CV3 launch was successful. It does have 4 supply on it. Let's move that over to the board. Took a bit of a risk with them to try to get them back to catch up in terms of tech with the other 2. So I'm not sure if that's going to pay off or not, but we'll see. So they're coming up here to Earth orbit. They're just going to stay here. And then during the base building phase, we will build a base there with them. That's all the movement for South America. Moving on to Japan, I'm looking around the board. I don't see anything that needs to move. They have an orbiter at Mercury, an orbiter at near-Earth asteroids, and they've got a flyby coming into Jupiter, so nothing there needs to move. They do have their orbiter they're sending out to Uranus, and a flyby that they're going to send out to the solar system as far as it will go. So we will go ahead and launch the orbiter with a probe on an LV2. Here's the roll for that. 76, they got that, and they get to keep their LV2. And that, like I said, is going out to, let me see here, it's going out to Uranus. It's 9 away. They have 0.9 as their modifier for movement, so that turns into an 8. And they did also use a vehicle one size larger than necessary, so they will go into the 7 transfer box over at Uranus. And then their other ship is a Flyby, launching on an LV-1. That is successful, and they keep their launch vehicle. So the luck continues for Japan, whereas it does not start for South America. So they're launching off of Earth, and they're just going to go to the flyby box. I think that's allowed. So they're going to go to the Earth flyby. They're going to probably survey the moon on the way out, and then they'll move out towards Mars or beyond after the exploration phase. That is it for Japan's movement. We'll move on to North America. North America is going to launch their... Actually, let me look around the board here. So right now what North America has is nothing that you're currently seeing in the inner solar system area. They do have a flyby at the scattered disk that we'll take care of during exploration. So they're going to launch their CV2 on their existing LV2. Right now they have an LV2 and an LV3. They're going to launch the CV2 on the LV2. And it's going to go to Phobos and try to get their mission. They roll a 40, so they do get to reuse their launch vehicle. And that's going to go from Earth out to the Mars 1 box. So that'll be their next turn. And then they also have their CV3, and it's got 3 supply and a fuel on board. And it's launching on top of an LV3. It's going out to Mars to start their base. Here's the roll. Got a 30, so they get to keep their launch vehicle. And there we pick up their ship with all of their resource tokens on it. So it is also heading out to Mars. So it's going to go in the same box as the CV3. They're not stacked as a fleet, but I'm just going to stack them there for convenience. Yeah, so of the 5 launch vehicles that we just launched, the one that was probably most important to its owner to be reusable was the South American one, and that is the one that was not able to be reused. So that's going to be difficult for them this turn, this decade. We're going to see how that turns out for them. But that is the end of movement. We'll move on to exploration. All right, so for the North Americans, the only thing they currently have is their flyby out at the scattered disk. It's going to target Eris. It needs a 12 for that exploration. So here we go. They get a 1 and a 59, so they get to pull 2 physics markers for that. The first one is a 1, and the second one is another 1. So just a total of 2 there, no depletion for them. And so at this point, per the rules, at least per the rule book, it would be able to fly on towards Alpha Centauri. I cannot find it right now for some reason, but I seem to recall reading either in an errata or a FAQ or something that once it leaves the scattered disk, it's not allowed to go to Alpha Centauri anymore. It was too easy, I think, to go to Alpha Centauri at that point. So my understanding, at least the way I'm going to play it, is the only way to actually travel to Alpha Centauri is to launch it directly from wherever it starts off at. So if I build it on Earth, it can launch directly there. Or later on, if we build it from somewhere else, it could launch directly there. But I don't think I'm going to play where from the scattered disk, they go off to Alpha Centauri. So at this point, I'm just going to remove this flyby from the board. It is gone. It is traveling off into interstellar space in the general direction of nothing that it'll reach within the time frame of this game. Okay, so moving on to Japan. They've got their orbiter out at Mercury. They need a 7, but now they're actually at +2 for their robotic exploration, so they need a 9. And their malfunction rate is all the way down to 16 now. That'll be 26 at Mercury, but still, that's pretty good odds. So I say that, but they get a 25 on their malfunction, so that has malfunctioned, but they do, with their 8, they do get an exploration. So for the exploration, they get a 2. And for the malfunction, they get a 3. So we will remove this orbiter from the board and move on to the flyby that's currently at Earth flyby. So that flyby's got a 3 and a spectrometer. So the moon currently has +2 bonus for spectrometer. So that's going to be a 9 by the time all the bonuses are added up. So they get a 5 and a 60, so that's fine, no malfunction. And they pull a 5. So just it continues, it seems, into this decade for the exploration for Japan's robotic explorers here. So we'll go through that depletion momentarily. I've reduced the exploration value by 1. Let's pull 2 because we've got a spectrometer here, so we're going to pull 2 world cards, and the moon is rocky. So we have, I'll get these here, C-class asteroid and impact basin. So C-class asteroid does not affect any, it's not valid, but impact basin does apply to rocky, and it is just a better card in general than silicate rocks. So we'll go ahead and replace the silicate rocks with the impact basin. A little bit better, it provides a little bit more research. And thinking about it now, I'll have to look at it, I'll have to think about it. That might actually be a better target now for the South American base, is at the moon. But we'll think about that when we get there. So for the flyby, still we need to make sure, we need to roll for an engine malfunction to see if it moves on. Everybody's engine malfunction check is still at 5%. Nobody improved that during the last research phase. So that's fine, and it's going to move off to the Mars 1 box as well. It'll just hang out to the side. Got a lot coming into Mars next year. Alright, their orbiter at near-Earth asteroids is a 3 plus 1 plus the 2 for the world card plus a 2 for their bonus, so that is 8. They roll 4 and a 36, so that's fine. And an engineering marker is just a 1 this time. And then lastly, they've got their flyby out at Jupiter. I think they'll target Jupiter itself. Actually, no, there's no point in... Well, there's a point in doing it, but Io is probably a better choice. If I want physics research, the 7 is just better. So we'll target Io. They do want some physics research. So Io's a 7, the flyby is a 2, so that's 9, minus 1 for the transfer box is 8, plus 2 for their bonus is 10. So automatic success. Roll for malfunction, 92, no malfunction. So let's see what we get at Io. It is just a 1. And finally, moving on to South America, they do have their rover at the main belt. They need a 9 for research there. They get a 1 and a 95, so that's good. Just 1 exploration. And then they get a 1. Alright. Alright, so after having thought about it, I think South America is going to go ahead and build the base in Earth orbit. The benefit of the moon is that it is a little bit better engineering research. It's a 4 there as opposed to the 3 at Earth. And there are resources that can be produced, but the resources are not that great right now with the Impact Basin World card. And the nice thing about the Earth location for research is that it can be 3 of anything. So it's a little bit more flexible. So I think they're going to go ahead and do that. It cost 2 supply to build a base here. They don't have any bonuses right now to base building. So they're going to go ahead and spend 2 supplies from their cargo hold. And they're going to build a base right here in Earth orbit. So they've got the first base up. And then they still have 2. I'm going to move this 2 supplies over to the base itself, over on the faction card. Eventually, it's going to take 2 more ore and a fuel to build a settlement. I think a settlement is probably going to be more important to them right now than the research station. More important, I think, for them is going to be able to get a good trade deal in the next decade, either buying supplies cheaply that they can use or selling supplies to make money. Either way, money seems to be their primary concern right now. They do not have a lot of it, and I'm not sure what to do with them moving forward because they don't have a launch vehicle. They do have $12 billion, but we'll just have to see. I'm not exactly sure what their plan is quite yet. But I think building that base in Earth orbit is the first step to whatever it is that they would like to do. So that's it for 2040. Looking through the rest of the turn sequence here, we built a base. There's no bases to trade with. That would have been before that. and we're nowhere near the end of game check. So that's the end of 2040. We'll move on to the build phase of 2041. Okay, build phase of 2041. South America is rebuilding their LV3, and they're buying 3 ore and 1 fuel to be launched up to their new base up in Earth orbit. Their special ability is that they can fit 1 extra resource in their launch vehicles, so they're going to just go ahead and use that. That 1 extra dollar doesn't really buy them anything extra. This leaves them now with $4 billion, which, if their launch vehicle is successfully recovered, will be enough to fund their crew vehicle to be resupplied twice. So that's their idea there, and they're going to build a settlement. Japan is buying 2 more robotic explorers. They're getting their telescope back up into orbit, and they're sending an orbiter over to the main belt for engineering research. And then over here, North America is not building anything this turn. Next turn, they're going to build supplies and ore and whatnot to send off to Mars to expand their base. But right now, they're going to hold off. They're going to keep their $15 billion. It doesn't all have to be spent early in the decade or anything, so they're just going to wait and see how the next turn plays out. Okay, mandatory movement is done. Onto movement. South America is launching those resources up to their Earth base. So here we go. They roll a 100. I saw the 00 there on the right dice. I'm like, oh man, they're going to lose another launch vehicle. But thankfully that one on the left is a 0, so that is a 100 in this system, so they are good. That will be kept. And those resources I'm just moving over onto their faction sheet over to the base. Other movement for them is we're going to move the CV3, and we're going to move it just away from the station, but remain in Earth orbit. Right now, the only faction that has the ability to move crew vehicles away from the Earth system is North America, but the other 2 do have the ability to move at least to the near-Earth asteroids and the Moon. But they're going to keep it in Earth orbit, and they're going to do some exploration there during the exploration phase. So here we go for their movement. They get a 51, no problem. And we'll just separate them here. I'll move them down here. Next up is Japan. They're launching their telescope. They've got currently an LV1 and an LV2 on Earth. They're using the LV1 to launch the telescope up to Earth orbit. Got a 48, so no problem. They get to keep that. Their telescope just became a lot better too, because it's a lot more reliable, and it's providing +2 to the roll, which is really nice. So I think they're going to get a lot of value out of that telescope. And then next they're sending an orbiter and probe out to the main belt on an LV2. You get a 13, so that is successful, but it will not be recovered. So they will lose that launch vehicle. And we will send, that is an LV2, so typically it takes 3 years to get out there, even at their current engine tech. So it would normally go to the 3, but because they used an LV2, it's going to go to the 2. I see no other movement for Japan. Again, we've got flybys ready to go, but that'll be during the exploration phase. So next up will be North America. They've got 2 crewed vehicles over by Mars. They're going to try to bring the, let's do the one that's going down to Mars with the resources. That is moving down to Mars. So roll for their engine check, 37, no problem. I'll move that down. And then the CV2 there, the Orion, is going to move to Phobos. 62, no problem. I played a solo 1 faction game first when I got this, and I was completing the mission every decade. And so it's weird that so far the 3 factions, none of them have completed any missions. So it's playing out a little bit differently this time than the solo game I had played. But North America is hoping that that changes now. Hopefully they'll get that Phobos mission soon enough. And speaking of that, that's all the movement, so we will go ahead and move to exploration, and it will be that North American CV2 over on Phobos. They need a 9. They get 2 dice because they have the lab, and they are 99, not recalled, and they do get the 8, so that is an exploration. So it's engineering, and we have pulled a 1. So they will try again next turn. I'm looking out across the board, and I just realized that that's all that North America has, are their 2 crew vehicles. because their flyby left the scatter disk and it's gone. So they may want to spend some of their money next turn building a robot or two just to have a little bit more exploration. It's looking at the moment as though, at least for North and South America, they're going to have less research this decade than they did last decade because they're focusing on different things. So it'll be interesting to see how it goes. I'm trying to intentionally play each of these factions differently just to see how they go. And yeah, we'll see. So we'll move on to Japan. They've got their telescope. They're going to target deep space astronomy. They need an 8 with their bonuses. So they got a 7 and a 78, so that's good. We'll pull a physics marker, and it is a 3. All right, so that is a depletion. I'll go over there and flip that 7 over. No world card there, so search for life is 5%. 67, nope. And then the politics marker is drawn. The orbiter at near-Earth asteroids needs a 8. Got a 10 and an 80, so nothing there. The flyby at Mars is going to target, I think they'll target Phobos. I think that is the, again, they really like engineering, so engineering is what they're going to try for here. And they're expecting to get a little less of it from malfunctions just because their malfunction rate now is so low. So they need an 8 for that. They get a 2 and an 82. So pull an engineering chit here, and it is a 3. I really don't know what's going on here. They are pulling all of the good ones. And that's not going to make North America very happy. That just hurt their chances a little bit to get a depletion there for their mission. But that is a spectrometer, so pulling 2 world cards. We've got, let's see here, so Phobos is a rocky moon. We've got cratered surface, which is rocky or icy, and helium-3 gas giant. So we'll keep the cratered surface. It's really not too powerful, but it does apply, unlike the helium-3. So we'll just put that there. And then we will do a search for life. And on Phobos, that is 2%. Got a 52, no life, and they will get a politics marker. They also need to make their engine check. 12, so they will move on to the asteroid belt, and that will go to the 2 box. The flyby at Jupiter will target Io, so that's 7 plus a 2 plus a 2, so 11. Just the 1, but no failure. And they get a 1. And then an engine check to move on. 77. And that is out to the Saturn II box now. And now moving on to South America, their crew vehicle is going to explore Earth orbit. They do have a lab, so they need a 7 on, they get to roll 2 dice, and they do get it. There is a recall, however. So here's the biology for the exploration. It's a 5. All right. Is that their first depletion of the game, or did they get one? They might have gotten one last decade. But that is a depletion, and then 3 for the recall. So quite a bit of biology research from that recall, and we will flip that over and go through that. So for Earth, we did reduce the exploration. I did flip over the CV for the recall. There's no world card. There's no search for life. We know life is there. They did pull a politics marker. So next will be the rover at the main belt. Needing a 9. Got it with a 3. No malfunction. So they will pull a 2. That is all for exploration. Let's see, we're moving on to building bases. We do have a base to build. So North America is going to build a base on Mars. They've got 3 supplies and a fuel with them. Normally Mars would take 4 supplies to build a base, but they do have the tech to subtract 1 from that number. So it'll take all 3 of those supplies to build a base, and I'll go ahead and put that out on the board. Okay, Redstone base has been added to Mars. So right now at Redstone, they've got 1 fuel, and they'll be launching, at least the intent is to launch more supplies there next year, and they would like to get both a mining and supply station going. That way they can increase the range of their at least CV2s, hopefully CV3s. They'd like to get out to the main belt at some point. Right now their range is only 1, so they're not going to be able to get out to the main belt this decade. But it's something that they might be able to do next decade. And they just like to have a outpost out there. They don't have to keep going back to Earth and using launch vehicles to resupply their ships. So with that, that is the end of 2041. All right, building phase of 2041. Japan is going to build a rover, the rover here, for 5 billion, and I think they're going to send it off to Mercury. And then North America is building, they've got 3 resources there they're going to launch towards Mars, and then they've also got the orbiter and probe that they're launching towards Venus. So that's the build phase for 2041. And of course, by 2041, I mean 2042. Mandatory movement complete. South America. They have their rover, it's not moving. They are going to bring their crewed vehicle back to Earth so that they can resupply it. Get an 89, no problem. So that comes back onto Earth, and then next turn they will resupply that and launch it back. Moving on to Japan. They're launching their rover on an LV-1 that they have. They have the LV-1. They lost their LV-2 last time, but they still have the LV-1. So that is going to move out to, at least they're going to attempt to move out to Mercury. On a 29, they do get to keep their launch vehicle, and that will go, it's just an LV-1, so it will take 2 years to get out to Mercury. And Mercury's got nice bonuses for rovers, so that'll be good. And then North America, they are going to launch their supplies to Mars. It's 2 ore and a supply. This is on their LV-3. So it does get launched, but the rocket is not reused, so they have lost that launch vehicle. But the supplies do make it out to the base. Next up, they will launch their orbiter. The orbiter does have a probe. They still have an LV-2, so they're launching that to Venus. 68, they do get to reuse the LV-2, and this will head off to Venus, and it will go into the 1 box. Let's see, more movement for North America. They are going to move their CV-3 away from Mars, and it's going to head over towards Phobos. They really want to finish that mission as soon as they possibly can. So here's the roll for the movement. 57, not a problem. They're not going to stack together with the Orion here. They're just going to be both in the same location. Alright, that concludes all of the movement. The CV-3 for North America on Phobos, that's going to go ahead and do exploration. They do not have the tech yet for mining, otherwise that might be something they would consider doing there. That should be hopefully next turn, next decade they'll have that. But not at the moment, so they do need a 6. This does not have a lab, so they rolled a 1 and a 76. So that is successful, and that is no recall. So that is an engineering marker, and that is a 3. They got their depletion, which also means that that is the first mission of the game that we have completed for any faction. So we'll go ahead and go through that here momentarily. Alright, I've reduced Phobos down to a 1. It's off camera here, but I'm taking the Phobos mission that North America has, and I'm placing it in on their actual faction sheet to signify that they've completed it. I'm going to draw for a new mission here, and they ended up pulling Mars. So that should be pretty easy, I would think, for them to do, since they're already pretty much in place there. The bag of missions I have here, I haven't actually removed any of the ones that have later dates on them, so I'm just pulling until I get one that is a valid mission. There's probably more efficient ways to do that, but that's alright. That'll work. They get a politics marker for completing the mission. Next up, we draw a world card. So pull one from the bag here. We've got chasms. That's for rocky or icy, and it looks better all around for resource production. It's still not fantastic, but I think they're going to change out cratered surface, and they're going to put down chasms here. Next up is a search for life on Phobos that is 2%. 47, nope. And then they get a politics marker for the depletion, so they end up getting 2 total out of that. And I just realized I had said that wrong. I said they needed a, I think 6 was it? 4 plus 2, but they actually do have the tech for +1, so that would have been a 7, but either way that worked out. Alright, so North America does also have their CV2 over on Phobos, and I moved that mission marker over to Mars for North America, so we know that that's where their next mission is at. They were going to explore Phobos, and it's really not a bad idea to do it with the 5 plus the 1 plus the 1 bonus, and then plus the 1 extra bonus. 1 for the world card, 1 for their tech. But I don't want to risk recalling them right now. I think they want to go to Mars with the CV2 next turn and explore there with the Orion, since they have a mobile lab. And they have a chance at getting 2 markers over there with that ship. So I think they're going to wait. I don't know if that's the right call, but I think they're going to wait with that. The North Americans have nothing else right now to explore with, so moving on to Japan. Their telescope will point at deep space astronomy again. They need a 7. They have an 8, so nothing there. Next is the orbiter at the near-Earth asteroids. They need an 8, because again they're at +2 for robotic explorers, and they do have a spectrometer, which that world card gives a bonus to. They get a 2 and a 49, so that is a success. And they are pulling a 1. Next up for Japan, they have a flyby at the main belt. They're going to target the main belt. Actually, I take that back. They're going to target... Yeah, they're going to target the main belt. So they need a 3 for the flyby, 4 for main belt, that's 7. They're 1 away, 6, plus 2 for their bonus. They need an 8. So they did get the exploration with a 4. A 15 is just below their malfunction limit of 16, so that will malfunction. So we'll pull a chit for the exploration. That is a 2. And then 1 for the malfunction. That is a 1. And I will go remove that from the board. The orbiter over there can't do anything yet. And then after I remove the flyby, we'll move on to Saturn. The flyby at Saturn is going to target Titan. They don't really need biology tech that much, but you know, they wouldn't mind completing that mission. So they need, let's see here, 8 plus 2 is 10, plus another 2 is 12, minus 1 for the distance is 11. So they don't get the extra 1, but they don't have a malfunction either. So they pulled a 1. And finally, moving on to South America, they have their rover at the main belt, needing a 9. They got a 10, so nothing happens there. Alright, building and expanding bases. I know that the little camera there is not the greatest, but I think it's better to see what's going on, at least a little bit. The camera setup over here on from what I'm looking at, this side of the table with all the faction cards is not the best, but hopefully you can see what's going on. So they are going to expand and build a small mining station that's going to cost them 1 supply and 1 ore. I will make change for that ore here in just a moment. So when it comes time for the economics phase, they will be able to produce quite a few supplies on Mars now. They also now still have a fuel and an ore, so they will be able to build their small supply station next turn. This is actually one thing I'm not incredibly clear on in the rules. The rule says each base can build or expand only 1 facility level per turn. So I don't know if that means I can, like, I know that implies that I can only build a small mining station. I can't like build right up to a large mining station. I'm not sure if that means I can build a small mining station and a small supply station on the same turn. So let me know what the correct interpretation of that is. But for, at least at the moment, it doesn't really matter. I'll just wait till next turn to build the supply station. It'll be fine either way right now. And with that, that concludes 2042. Oh, before moving on to 2043, before we move to 2043, I forgot to do one other thing. The South American base orbiting Earth was going to build a settlement, so I'm going to go ahead and do that as well. It's 2 supply, 2 ore, and a fuel, so now they do have a settlement there, so they'll be able to get a trade marker next turn. Or next decade, rather. All right, the only build for 2043, the South American CV is going to be resupplied for $2 billion. That leaves South America with $2 billion, and they do have their LV3 that they will use to launch that CV3 with. Japan still has $3 billion and an LV1, but I think they're going to wait. They do have room for one more robotic explorer, but I think they're going to wait and see kind of where the other missions go right now. If the telescope were to fail in the next turn or two, I think they would rebuild that. But they're going to hold on to that $3 billion for now. And then North America has $8 billion. So I need to figure out what to do with them. They only have an LV2 at the moment. I sort of want to keep a little bit of money around in case the CV2 or CV3 becomes recalled. Want to be able to go back to Earth and be able to resupply that. So I'm going to hold off on both Japan and North America for now. So we'll move on to movement. I'll do the mandatory moving, and then we'll be back for other movement. Okay, mandatory movement complete. Going to launch South America's CV3 up into orbit on a 6. Okay, that is a success. That does not fail, but they do not get to keep their launch vehicle. So this is the last time that they'll be able to launch their CV3 because they have nothing else to launch it on. So that'll be up in orbit. They're going to continue to get biology research up there. This was not a great decade, I think, for South America, having their launch vehicle 3 be unreusable, non-recoverable, twice. That's really going to be tough. Now, this game does have a pretty nice mechanic for getting back into the game if you're behind. Research is a good amount cheaper if the other factions have already researched it. So I think they'll be able to come back later in the game, but this decade is not going to. I don't think this decade's going to be too great for them. So that's all the movement for them right now. Moving on to Japan. The orbiter at the main belt is going to move into orbit at the main belt on a 66. So that'll move to the main belt. North America, they're going to move their CV2 over to Mars. Get that with an 84. Trying to figure out what to do with their CV3. Part of me wants to leave it right where it's at and try to finish off the research, the exploration on Phobos. Try to get an even better world card, maybe one that adds ore instead of supply. But they also wouldn't mind getting biology research. I think they'll stay there for a turn. There is that bonus to crude research or crude exploration, so I think they're going to stay there. They do have that mission on Mars, though. Yeah, you know what? They have the mission on Mars, so I think they're going to move over to Mars. So let's roll for that. 33. And so they will move over to Mars as well. They're basically moving as a fleet, but I'm leaving them separate for now. They do also have the orbiter over at Venus, and it will try to move into orbit, and they do on a 9. So that is all the movement. Moving on to exploration. They're going to use their probe at Venus, and that is a 15. So just roll a red dice. Get a 7, so just the 1. And that'll be a physics chit, and it is just a 1. So that probe has been expended. Next up for North America, they're going to use their CV. Let's use the CV2 first to get the best chance of getting 2 tokens over there. So the CV2 is going to explore on Mars. They're at 5 plus 4, so that's 9. And then plus, I guess I miscalculated this a little bit. So they can't actually get 2 because 5 plus 4 plus their bonus of 1 is 10. So we'll do the CV3 first. The CV3 needs a 9 for exploration there. They get a 6 and a 15, so they do get the exploration, but they also get a recall. So here's for the exploration. It is a 1. And then for the recall, it is a 1. I'll flip that over here momentarily. They are also going to explore now with the CV2. The CV2 is automatic at 10, but they need to roll for recall. They get a 71, no recall, and so they will pull their biology chit here, and it is another 1. Of the 8 chits North America has pulled this decade, 7 of them have been ones. So, all right, on to Japan. The telescope pointing at deep space astronomy, needing a 7, an 8, and a malfunction. So, no success, but we do pull engineering for the malfunction, and that is a 2. So Japan will likely try to relaunch their telescope with their remaining $3 billion next turn. The orbiter at near-Earth asteroids needs a, 6 plus 2, so they need an 8. Got the 8 and no failure, so, or no malfunction, I should say. So they pull a 1 for that. Over at the main belt, they're going to use the probe they brought along, so that's a 13. Got a 2, so they do get 2 engineering chits for that. So the first one is a 2. First one's a 2. And the second one is a 2. So 4 in total, but no depletion since none of them were 3 or better. And I will remove that probe next time I'm over there. And then the flyby at Saturn, that's going to target Titan again, this time needing a 12. They got the 12, but they also had a malfunction, so lots of chits we're going to pull here. So 2 biology for the successful exploration. First one is a 1. The second one is a 2. And then an engineering for the malfunction. That is a 2. Alright, so I need to go remove the flyby from Saturn as well as the probe from the main belt. That is all for Japan. South America, their CV3 exploring Earth, needing a 6, and they do have a lab. So they get the exploration and no recall. That's good. So again, they have no way to get to resupply and get back up at this point. So this is good that they are going to stay around, and they get a 2. And then their rover at the main belt. Got a 2 and a 21, so that's a malfunction, and the 2 is good for the exploration though, so they'll pull for the exploration as a 3. They get a depletion, and then for the malfunction is a 2. So pretty good engineering tech there. I have removed the rover. It did not have a spectrometer, so we'll just pull 1 world card, and we get ridged terrain for rocky or icy, so this does apply, and it's decent. There are better ones out there, but it's not bad. So it'll provide, so right now it is actually a source of 6 ore, which is not bad at all, and then life check of 3%. 58, nope, but they do get a politics marker for the depletion. That is all for exploration. For base expansion, the North Americans are going to build a small supply station out at Mars. Eventually they want to turn that into at least a large supply station. Not that they have any resources there right now that they can supply anything with, but maybe they'll change that next turn. I'm not sure yet. But that is the end of 2043. Alright, for the 2044 build phase, Japan is building their telescope again. That is the last of their $3 billion. I think that's it for now. North America is going to hold off. They're going to have to resupply their CV3 and build an LV3, so we'll wait on that for a little bit. Right now, just Japan building their telescope. Mandatory moves complete. Onto movement. South America has no movement at the moment. Japan has a rover at Mercury that needs to go land on Mercury. They get a 50. That's fine. And then they also have, they've got a few orbiters out there. They're good to go, but then they also are going to launch their telescope on their LV1. Here's the roll for that, is a 56. So they do get to keep their LV1, and their telescope comes back up into Earth orbit. Finally, North America is moving their CV3 back to Earth. 61, that's fine, so that'll move back to the 1 box. Moving on now to exploration, the orbiter over at Venus for North America needs an 8. get a 3 and an 86, or 89 rather. So that is a physics, and they get a 2. And then the only other thing they have right now is their crewed vehicle on Mars. It is automatic at a 10, so rolling for recall, they get a 13, so they are recalled. So here we go, we are going to pull for the exploration, that's a 2, and pull for the recall, and that is a 1. And so that will flip over. And that'll be interesting, because that base can resupply crew vehicle 2s at this point, but they don't have any resources to do it. So I'll have to figure out what to do about that. Next up, Japan, sitting there at Mercury with a rover. They need a 14, 5 for the rover, 5 for the exploration, 2 for the world card, and 2 for their bonus. They get a 6 and a 68, so just the 1. It is engineering, and they pull a 2. The telescope pointing at deep space astronomy, needing a 7. Got the 7 and a 17. 17 is not a malfunction. Their malfunction is 16. So they will go ahead and get their physics marker, which is a 2. The orbiter at near-Earth asteroids, targeting the near-Earth asteroids, needing an 8. Got a 7 and a 99. And they get a 1. And the orbiter at the main belt will target the main belt, needing a 7. They get a 6 and a 28. And they get another 2. So no depletions, but a good amount of research regardless. And now moving on to South America. They've got their crew vehicle in Earth orbit, needing a 6. They got the 6 and no recall. So they pull a 1. So not a great number there, but they are around for another turn to explore again. Moving on now to 2045. I've already done the mandatory movement. The only purchasing this year, North America is buying 1 supply and 1 fuel for $2 billion, and they're going to send that to their Mars base on their LV-2. When you send supplies like that with launch vehicles, they arrive instantaneously. So they'll get, assuming they pass their engine check, it'll get passed out to Redstone base on Mars, and then next turn they can resupply their CV2 without the CV2 having to come back. The only other movement for anybody is the CV3 for the North Americans moving back to Earth. Oh, that is the wrong dice, but that's fine. It's 52, so we'll keep that. And that'll go back here to Earth. And then, of course, they want to launch their resources to Mars. So on an LV2, 89, that's good. So they do get to reuse their LV2 in the future, and those resources are now at Mars. The only exploration for North America is the orbiter at Venus, needing the 7. Get a 6 and an 82, so that continues to produce research for North America, and they get a 2. Next is Japan's rover at Mercury over there, needing a 14. 78, so no malfunction, only 1 engineering pull, and it is a 1. Telescope pointing at deep space astronomy, needing a 7. Got the 4 and a 66. And they get a 3. So they do get a depletion out there. We'll run through that. They moved it down to 5, doing a search for life, 5%. Get a 16, no life, and they have gotten a politics marker for that. Next up, near-Earth asteroids, needing an 8. Got a 4 and a 30, so that continues to work. Their spacecraft are certainly sticking around a whole lot longer with their low malfunction rate, and this time this one pulled a 3. So that is the final depletion there on the near-Earth asteroids. They do have a spectrometer, so we will draw 2 world cards. Near-Earth asteroids being rocky asteroids. Let's pull 2 here, and we've got, turn these around. We have volcanoes and precious metals. Well, precious metals is quite good. That's going to add 6, or that is 6 ore and quite a bit of research as well. So they're definitely going to switch that out there, and that's a pretty good place to mine for minerals now. It's going to produce 8 a turn for the 6 and the +2. And South America is looking pretty interested in this as well, because that's a really good location for a research station. So that'll be interesting. I think we might see some activity there at the near-Earth asteroids. That does get flipped down to a 0. And then we need to do a search for life at 3%. 17, nope. And they do get a politics marker. I think ships can be decommissioned at any time. Correct me if I'm wrong on that, but I'm going to go ahead and do it. So at this point, this orbiter is not really providing any other value. There's nothing else it can explore at the near-Earth asteroids. So I'm just going to remove it from play, and they are not going to be able to launch it. Actually, they can't buy it. They're out of money, but it will help with their exploration limits during the economics phase at the end of the decade. The orbiter at the main belt, targeting the main belt, needing a 7. Got a 3 and an 81, and they get a 2. They have the orbiter moving out to Uranus, but it is 2 years away still, so nothing to do there. And then lastly, South America, they have their CV3. So we'll be rolling to explore Earth. They get a 6. They do get 2 dice because they have a lab, but they don't need it. That 6 is fine. And then the 90 is good. They don't have a recall again, so it's doing quite well there in orbit. And they pull a 5. So we will go through that depletion here. So South America doesn't have a whole lot of ships out there right now, but they are making the most of it with that 1 there. So that is it for exploration. There's no base building happening, and that is the end of 2045. Alright, build phase. The only thing being built here is an LV3 by the North Americans, and they are paying $2 billion to ready the CV3 there. That is the rest of their money. Everybody's out of money except for South America. They've got $2 billion. They'll probably just end up keeping that and moving that on to the next year. Oh, and the other thing being built here, not built, but the CV2 is being readied at Mars, North America's CV2. They're paying their 1 supply and 1 fuel at their small supply station out there on Mars, and that will ready the... you know what? I say that, but I can't do that. Let me take that back. They are on Mars. The CV2 is on Mars, but it is not currently docked to the base. So I don't remember if they could have done that last turn or not. So what we'll do this turn is move the CV2 onto the base. So they'll have to wait till next turn to actually be resupplied. So with that, the only movement is for North America. So they'll go ahead and do that move with the CV2. 89, so that will go to the base. They were just somewhere else on Mars at that point, but now they're actually on the base. And then the CV3 will roll for that to get that back up into space. Got a 24, so successful, but they do not get to keep that launch vehicle. It's pretty painful. And it's going to head back out to Mars, and it'll take 1 year to get there. Exploration for North America, the orbiter at Venus needing an 8. 10 and 85, nothing happens. That is it for North America right now. They'll have more next year when they have both of their ships on Mars again, but that's it for this year. Japan, rover on Mercury, still needing a 14. They do get the extra engineering shit, so they'll get to pull 2. The first one is a 1, and the second one is a 2. I don't show this much here, but I'm just looking at all of the different research technology chits that everybody's pulled, and Japan's pulled like 3 times more than the other two. So they're going to have quite a bit of engineering research at the end of the decade here. Telescope pointing at deep space astronomy again, needing a 7. Got a 6 and a 17. Again, that 17, I think we rolled a 17 last time too. So that is fine. It's not a failure since they're at 16. And the 6 is a success. And they pull a 2. And finally for them, the orbiter at the main belt, needing a 7. 4 and 67, another success. And they pull a 1. When I started this game, I actually thought that the strategy I was planning on using for Japan would be the weakest of the 3. They've had some pretty lucky pulls, but I don't know that that's accurate, though it will be interesting to see if later in the game the other 2 kind of catch up and surpass them. So we'll see, but right now they are really dominating in the tech part of the game. And South America, they're CV3, researching Earth. They need a 5. They do get it with the 2, and they do not have a recall. It's a 62 there. So another biology marker for them, and that is a 2, which it's almost good they didn't get the depletion there. They'd like to keep sitting there and getting more biology research, so that works out for them. Moving on now to 2047. Mandatory moves have been completed. I did pay I'm paying now the resources on Mars to ready that CV2. So North America should have some research to do now on Mars this turn. So nothing else being bought by anybody. And moving on to movement, the only movement here, actually we have two different factions that have movement. North America's got their crewed vehicles at Mars. The orbiter that Japan sent to Uranus is now finally there, so we will go to that. So that orbiter is going to move on into orbit there. And 96, no problem. And for North America, that CV3 is going to go land on Mars, fine with the 37. And the CV2 is also moving away and landing on Mars at a different location. So both of those are on Mars. Moving on to exploration. North America, orbiter, Venus, needs an 8. Got a 2 and a 27. That is a failure, but they do get the physics before it goes away. And they get a 1. And they will pull an engineering, and that is going to be a 5. Big one. Japan is quite sad about that. Alright, moving on to the CV3 over there on Mars. They need a 9. Get a 3 and an 80. That's good. 1 biology marker is a 2. The CV2 automatic at a 10, and they are recalled. So a biology for the exploration is a 2, and for the recall is a 3. They would have liked to seen that in the other order there so they could get their mission, but that will flip the CV2, and they don't have any more money or resources, so that's going to be the end of that for the decade here. Okay, Japan's rover on Mercury needs a 14, and that is 2, so they will get 2 engineering chits. First one is a 1, and the second one is a 2. So getting a lot of engineering there, but not depleting Mercury. So let's see, moving on to the telescope. It's going to point again at deep space astronomy, needing a 7. Got the 5, but it is a malfunction at 7, so here we go for the physics. The physics is a 3. They do deplete that again. And then pulling for the engineering, that is going to be a 2. I'll go ahead and do the life roll and then go over there and deplete that location and remove the telescope. Life roll 39, no life. The main belt orbiter needing a 7, 5, and a 50. That is a success. They pull a 1 for the engineering chit. And over here at Uranus, the probe is going to go, and it's going to need a 14. Get an 8, so nope, just the 1. And, or actually, that is a robotic explorer, so that does benefit from the +2, but they still need a 16, and they still did not get that. So they only get the 1. And that will be discarded. Side note, I apologize for the occasional shaking of the camera. I don't have a better system right now to be able to film this, so anytime I bump the table, I know there's a little bit of shaking, so I do apologize. And now South America with their CV3. Let's see if it can keep on researching there, needing a 5. They do get the 1, but they do get a recall, so this will be the final turn for that. But here's they get a 1 for the exploration, and then they get a 2 for the recall. So they don't have any money. Well, they do have money. They could technically resupply it, but they don't have any means to get it back up into space. So that will be the end of South America's exploration this decade. But it is already 2047. There's only 2 years left, so that's not as bad as I didn't think that thing was going to last quite as long as it did with the recall rate of 45%. So with that, that is the end of 2047. Moving on to 2048. Nobody is buying anything. Nobody has any mandatory moves. I think let's see here. I think for North America, they are going to move their CV2 somewhere. Let me think about that. Yes, they're going to leave their CV2 there on Mars. They're going to move it over to the base. I think the idea will be to resupply it near the beginning of next decade. They do have a launch vehicle 2 right now, back at Earth. No, I take that back. They're going to move back to Earth. I'm not sure if that's the right call or not, but that's what they'll do. They'll move back to Earth. Got a 23. And so they are coming back here to the 1 box. That is the only movement. Moving on to exploration. The only thing for North America is their CV3 on Mars, needing a 9. Get it with an 8. It is a recall. So exploration is a 3. They did get their mission finally. So we'll go through that in a moment. Let's pull for the recall. Get a 2 for that. And then we will go through those steps here. So I need to reduce the exploration. They have completed their mission. It is the 2nd decade, so they are able to keep 2 of them. So that's how many they have. They've got Mars and Phobos. And they get a politics marker for completing their mission. They're also going to get one for the depletion, so that's 2 total. They need to draw a world card. I can't imagine there's any world card that would be better than what's already there, but they will draw one all the same, and they have pulled silicate rocks. Does apply, but they are not going to keep that. They're going to keep the subterranean water that's already there. They need to do a search for life, which is 17%. And they get a 14. They have found life on Mars. This is big for them. This is a lot of tech, and I need to find the rulebook just to make sure I'm doing all of that correctly. So they get 2 victory points, they get 2 politics markers, and they get 4 biology pulls, which is really good for them. That's exciting. So they get a 3, a 1, a 2. Let's see if they can pull a 5 to make it one of each number. And a 1. Nope. So that's good. And then they get the tech, existing life, which will provide them with more research during the production phase. I have flipped over the token to life on Mars. That's also really nice for South America, who is interested in putting research bases all around. That's 8 biology research base right there, before any bonuses are factored in. So that's real nice. And then also, I don't want to forget that CV did get reserved, but I think they'll be okay with that based on the results of that exploration. So real good turn there for North America. Moving on to Japan, they need a 14 for their rover on Mercury. They do get that, no malfunction, so they get 2 engineering markers. It's almost about how many are left in here. So they get a 1 and a 5, so they got a depletion. Oh, and one thing I forgot to do, I'll do it right after I do this here. North America does need to pull a new mission. Okay, for North America, that new mission I pulled there was Saturn, so I've moved the flag over there to indicate that. All right, back to the depletion on Mercury for the rover. The exploration was reduced, drawing a world card. There is no spectrometer. Pulled mixed ice. That is not going to apply to Mercury here. Let's see, search for life is 2%. We'll roll for that. 65, nope. And they did get a politics marker for that. All right, the orbiter at the main belt needs a 7. Got a 3 and a 45. They get the last remaining engineering marker, which is a 1. And lastly, their orbiter at Uranus needs a 10, so it's automatic. They roll an 88, no malfunction, and then pulling a physics marker is a 1, so no mission completion there yet. South America does not have anything else to explore with, and I think that's it. It looks like I forgot to move them back down to Earth, but I'll do that next turn. So that is it for 2048. 2049, the last year of the decade. Nobody's buying anything. Mandatory move has been done there for the North American CV2. We'll do a little bit of movement here. The South American CV is going to go back to Earth. They get that on a 90. The North American CV2 is going to go back to Earth, and they get that on a 28. And then the North American CV3 is heading back towards Earth, and they get an 82. All right, the only faction left with anybody left to explore at this point is Japan. So they've got their rover on Mercury, needing a 13 now. They get a 4 and an 81, so they do get an engineering tech pull, but I do not have any more tokens left, so I need to add those up, deposit them in the pool, and put them back in the bank. All right, so after adding all of them up, North America and South America have both gotten 8 so far this decade, and Japan has gotten 55. So, yeah, they've gotten quite a bit. So the pull, it just keeps on going for them. So they get a 5 for that depletion, or it will now be a depletion on Mercury. They will draw a world card, and they have pulled silicate rocks. Silicate rocks, it does apply, and it is a little better. So, well, it is better. It is better for the minerals and for the research, but I think Japan's actually going to keep the cratered surface there because of the bonus it gives to the rover exploration. So they're going to keep that. There is a roll for life. Roll is 71, no life, and they get a politics marker. The orbiter at the main belt, targeting the main belt, needs a 7. They get an 8 and a 34. Nothing happens. And last but not least for the decade is their orbiter at Uranus, needing a 10. So automatic, they roll a 24, no malfunction, and a physics marker for them is a 2. So they've done excellent this decade, but still have not completed a mission. So, but the orbiter will live on into the next decade, and they can continue to try again then. So with that, that is the end of 2049, and we will move into the economics phase of 2050. I like doing the economics phase at the end. It sort of wraps everything up, I think. So we'll do that. And then that will be the end of the video. All right, so for the economics phase, everybody gets 2 politics markers, and South America gets 2 more for their policy tree. That puts North America at 8, Japan at 10, and South America at 7. Much more even this decade than last decade. Next up, rolling for an event. The event is 87. I'm not sure if you can see that or not, but 87 is Bountiful Harvest. Roll to place an extra asteroid this economic phase. So we'll place 2 asteroids. Alright, next up is Initiative. I don't know. I don't think anybody wants to spend any politics markers still at this point to affect that. It hasn't really affected much yet, and there's no bases that are in the same location that are vying for the same resources. The only real... I don't know. I know that there is an effect, especially when it comes to trying to explore the same location, but I think the research at the moment from the politics markers might be a little bit more important to everybody, so we'll just do a straight roll-off between the 3. North America gets a 67, Japan gets a 50, and South America gets a 79. So they will go into first, and then it'll be North America, Japan. I am a little afraid I'm going to forget that at some point during the next decade. It's been the same order for 20 years now, but yep, I will make that change, and it'll be South America, North America, Japan. All right, for diplomacy, everybody's going to, or we're going to see if any of the factions go towards neutral. The faction to go towards neutral is 5. 5 is Asia, and Asia is neutral with everybody here in the game, so that does not have any effect. I think everybody will try to increase their relations with an NPF once. So going in reverse initiative order, I believe, is the correct direction. Yep, reverse initiative order. Japan will elect to try to increase relations with Asia on a 6. Yes, they did get that, so that will go up 1. North America will try with the European Union on a 1. Yep, that goes up. And South America will try with China. An 8, no. Okay, for the production step, looking at the cash, I have this all written out on a little whiteboard here. So again, we look at their base production plus their policies, their foreign relations, their missions they've completed, and then how they compare to their limits. So North America's base is 30, and we move the camera over here. So you can see North America's base funds are 30. Put that back. From their policies give them 2 billion. Foreign relations, they get 1 billion for that. They get 2 billion for the 2 missions they've completed. They are 3 robotic explorers under their limit of 3. They have nothing right now, so that's $3. And they are at their limits for crew vehicles of 2 and bases of 1. So that puts them at 38. And in similar way, Japan is at 31 total, and South America is at 30 total. South America did have 2 billion carried over from the last year, or decade. All of the factions also produce a little bit of tech points in addition to money, so I'll add that in when it comes to the research step. Then finally, we do have one base. North America does have their small mining outpost on Mars. They're going to choose to get supplies. So they have 6 supplies plus 2. That's the bonus for Mars. It's a very small outpost. There are no settlements there, so they don't get any kind of bonus to that. They also don't get any other bonuses from... well, yeah, they don't get any other bonuses. So it's just the 6 plus the 2, which is 8. Oh, I know what I was going to say. They don't get any bonuses from having a larger mining station. So they just have a small mining station. So they will pull in 8 supply. at that base. So they'll be interested to ship some fuel out there to help resupply ships, and they'll be interested to send some ore out there to build things, but they have a good amount of supplies. So yeah, we'll see where they go from there. And that is it for production. Next up is resource transportation. North America does actually have the tech where they could send 5 resources between Earth and a base, or vice versa. But I think they're going to keep the resources on Mars for now. They've got 8 supply there on Mars. They could send 1 to Earth to help resupply the CV2 that's sitting there, but I think the supplies sitting on Mars are more valuable than supplies sitting on Earth. So nothing's going to happen there. Next up, we are adding bases, or we're going to look to see if we add a NPF base. So let's roll to see where that will be placed. 27, that sounds like somewhere that will probably get a base. Let me take a look. 27 is out here on Phobos, and you can see from the Mars flyby box that it's 2050 is when that becomes active, so we will have a base. Let me go find my bag of NPF bases, and we'll add one to Phobos. All of the factions are quite excited about this because now when it comes to the next policy step or diplomacy step, they will have an idea of who they need to be increasing relations with. So just randomly, I've got all of the other factions bases that are not in the game in one bag, and I'm just going to randomly draw, and we have China. So they're going to add a base to Phobos. So right now nobody has anything more than neutral relations with them, but like I said, I think in the diplomacy step we'll see everybody try to increase relations with them to increase how much they can trade. So after the that add bases step, we are going to place asteroids and pirates. We only have 1 right now, so it's before 2100 we only add 1 of each. So we will add an asteroid in the same way. 77. So 77 is off camera, but it is at Oberon Titania in the Uranus system. That is 2120, so nothing gets applied there. Our event was to add an extra asteroid, so we'll roll again. 89, that's out at Pluto, so again, that's not going to happen. And lastly, we will roll to see if a pirate gets added. 60, that is probably not going to happen. Let's take a look. 60 is going to be out in the Jovian system, I think, out at Jupiter. Yep, that's over at the Trojans and the Greeks. That does not come into play until 2100. So no asteroids, no pirates, but we do have a non-player faction base out there. Alright, moving on to develop technologies. I've added up all of the tech markers for each of the factions. North America has 31 biology they're adding, 12 physics, and 11 engineering. So they did pretty well in biology, but the other 2 were a little weak. Japan's adding 8 biology, 22 physics, and 64 engineering. And South America is adding 4 biology, 2 physics, and 10 engineering. A few of them had a few points left over from last time, not too many, but that's roughly the number of tech points that each faction is going to have to work with. And I'll do the same thing I did last time. I'll just go through faction by faction in reverse order, so it'll go Japan, North America, South America, and we'll develop technologies that way. Okay, so for technologies, you can see what we've gotten here. Both the North and South Americans have gotten space mining, so I think we'll see a little bit of that next decade. And North America also picked up the +2 to crew exploration. They did not have that. Yeah, so North America picked up the +2 for crew exploration. They did not have that before. Everybody picked up CV range 1 there, so that means that South America will be able to head out to Mars. And North America and Japan now have 0.8 for their modifier. And then coming down here to engineering, we've got LV4s now for North America. Japan has basically maxed out the tech for robotics. They're going to be at a 13% malfunction rate and +3 exploration, and that's going to move to +4 because they're going to get the policy to add 1 to that as well. So yeah, I think we're going to see more crew vehicles out of both the North and South America, and more robotic technology out of Japan. Okay, we're going to roll for settlement growth. South America does have their one settlement over in Earth orbit. So on a 1, that will grow for free up to 2. Close, but nope, it will stay at 1 for the time being. For policies, all of the factions moved up 1 more in the tree that they were previously moving up. So Japan moved up to robotic exploration, gets another +1, so they're at +4. South America can now convert their politics markers to 3 tech points. That should be really nice for them. And North America increased the amount of crew vehicles they can support. One thing I totally neglected to do was to add trade markers to bases. So we'll start with the South American base. So any base that has a settlement or an NPF base, they get trade markers. So like I said, we'll start with the South American base in Earth orbit. They pulled the OR trade marker. On a 6 through 10, it'll be on the buy side. 8, so it will be on the buy side. That means that they can buy ore at a discounted rate. And then the other base will be the Chinese base over on Phobos, and that is the supply one. And again, on a 6 through 10, that'll be on the buy side. Nope, it'll be on the sell side. So players can sell supplies to the Chinese base there based on how many per their relation with them. So everybody is neutral right now with China, which means that North America could sell up to 2 resources and the others could sell up to 4. So it might be a way to make some money there. And with that, that is the end of the economics phase for 2050, and that will be the end of the video. Thanks for watching, and I'm looking forward to the next one.